there, and welcome to this week's edition on our podcast on Romeo and Juliet. Mr. Matharo here. We've also got Miss Stander.
Hello.
We've also got Miss Thornhill.
Hello.
And we've got Miss Cartwright, our special guest today on this episode. So, hello there. So, we're going to be focusing today's podcast. We're going to be focusing on the character of Tybalt. And we're going to be looking at him in quite a lot of detail in terms of Act 1, and we're going to be discussing what we think how he's portrayed in the act. So, should we start with Miss Stander? What do you think? What's your first immediate impressions of Tybalt?
When I think of Tybalt, I think of aggression. I think of someone quite angry, someone quite full of hate. He's a very hot-headed person, and we see that in Act 1 straight away. So when there's a fight going on between Gregory and Samson, and he comes in and he says,
he tries to antagonise the fight, doesn't he? He tries to goad the servants on, and then when he sees Benvolio, who's trying to stop the fight, he kind of mocks him, doesn't he, and says, drawn and talk of peace.
Yeah, and he says, I hate the word as I hate how all Montagues. So he doesn't want peace at all. He sort of likes the commotion. He likes the drama. He likes the fight.
He enjoys it, doesn't he? He enjoys the conflict between his family and the Montagues, definitely.
Yeah, it's like he lives for it. He wants to be seen as that sort of macho man who's very aggressive. He doesn't want to be
patriarchal.
I feel like if we're going to talk about the sort of patriarchal society, when Benvolio's trying to calm things down, he's saying, "You need peace. Put your swords away." He sort of feels like, if I'm the man and I'm going to be the man of this.
And he says to him, doesn't he? He says, turn thee and look upon thy death.
Yeah.
I was going to say, don't you think, though, this is all part of the nature-nurture argument? Because he's been brought up by Lord Capulet, who we know is another really aggressive person, and Tybalt is trying to live up to this title of Lord Capulet, the title he might eventually get. So he's been brought up to believe he has to hate people, he has to be aggressive. He's just really doing what he's been told to do. He's not necessarily somebody who is really violent, because we do see him later on in a non-violent way when he's with other people, like the nurse.
So do you think
in a non-violent way
this violent persona is just for show?
I think it is. I think it's part of the fact, and if we look at John Locke and the nature-nurture argument, it's the way he's been brought up.
Yeah.
He's been brought up by his uncle, who tells everybody, we've got to be fighting all the time.
Yeah. And he's been brought up with this hatred for Montagues, and it's like we said, he wants to live up to sort of Lord Capulet's reputation, and he knows the main thing that the family has, the Capulet family, is that they are against the Montagues in a way.
However, though, if you compared him to a character like Romeo, who, as we learn in the prologue, that both families are both alike in dignity, so we can assume, they're the same. The Montagues hate the Capulets also. Romeo, then, he's nothing. He's the opposite. He's
the complete opposite.
But if you think about when we have Lord Montague and Lord Capulet in Act 1, Scene 1, Lord Capulet comes straight in wanting to get his sword out fighting. Lord Montague, that's not his first thing he does. In fact, it's his wife that speaks before him. It's almost like Lord Capulet is always the one trying to get in the fight, and Lord Montague is just, I'll go along with the fight because he's fighting with me.
So you think that Tybalt's anger is definitely, then it comes from how he's being taught by his family, and it's not a societal thing.
If you think about the party in Act 1, Scene 5, when he sees Romeo, he straight away goes over to Lord Capulet and says, "Uncle, it's the Montague boy." He's sort of almost getting permission to start the fight, and it's shocking to him that Lord Capulet suddenly does an about turn and says, "We're not going to do anything."
That's interesting, the point you've made, and it links back to that idea of honour, the sense of honour to the family, because he sort of foreshadows, doesn't he, towards the end of that exchange. I think he says, "Now by stock and honour of my kin, to stroke him dead, I hold it not a sin." So he's sort of suggesting that, you know what, exactly, like I'll let this go once, but this is foreshadowing the fight between me and you later.
And indirectly, because he holds on to that anger and bitterness, he causes Romeo and Juliet's death at the end, doesn't he? Because he kills Romeo's best friend, which then we see, we see the aggression in Romeo then.
He also mentions the sin thing as well. We know that it was super religious when Shakespeare was writing this. The fact that he doesn't see it as a sin to go after somebody shows that he almost sees Lord Capulet's violence and anger towards the Montague family as above God and above all of that side of it.
Yeah, I think So if we had to give an adjective to describe Tybalt, based on what we've said, so we've said that he's sort of like, he has this persona, he's not really this as aggressive as he puts out. How would you describe him then, Miss Donna?
I don't think there's one defining adjective to describe Tybalt, because as we've just talked about, he's got many different facets to his personality. He's honourable, he's loyal, he is aggressive, he is argumentative. I think we see a bit of a playful, argumentative side to him, aggressive side, to him at the start, when he's kind of goading the servants to continue with the fight as well.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can choose.
So it's like a lot of the characters, they sort of grow through the play.
He's got that animalistic edge to him at the start, where in a brawl setting, he wants to be seen as the aggressor, as the man of that particular environment. But then it's developing. But I liked that loyalty and that respect that he clearly has for Capulet.
I always think he's very misunderstood, because people automatically see him as the villain in the play, whereas actually I don't see him as a villain. I see him as somebody who's just desperately trying to gain approval.
You could compare him, I'm sorry to mention another play, but Lady Macbeth, she's always seen as an evil character, but I don't necessarily think that she is either. I think she's
both quite misunderstood.
And
I think, like we said, how at the party when he's saying to Lord Capulet that he's spotted a Montague, when Lord Capulet then dismisses it, that must make him feel a bit more confused, because he's thinking, so are we fighting with them, or is it okay? So I think that his relationship with Lord Capulet isn't as solid, because
that angers him, doesn't it? And it goes from what you were saying, that then he says, right, I'll let it be for tonight, but I won't forget this.
I won't forget this. No, I think he says this intrusion shall not seeming sweet convert to bitter gall. So again, he's foreshadowing that this can stop for now, and I respect you, Lord Capulet, but I will. You will meet your end.
What you just said is confusion is shown, isn't it? Because the language that he uses. So he says sweet, and then got bitter is gall as well. I think that.
I suppose he does have a lot to prove, because he's not actually Lord Capulet's blood relative.
No.
He's Lady Capulet's nephew, essentially. So he's desperately trying to get this in, where he probably always has felt like a little bit of an outsider, and he wants to be accepted into this great family. But you mentioned Romeo before. Romeo is the heir to Lord Montague. He's always going to be in favour and fine, he can do what he wants. But Tybalt can't, because he's always slightly on the
Do you think that adds to the reason why he wants to be this big character, why he tries to be, because he wants to make himself sort of known?
Compensate for maybe the lack of blood.
The other child is Juliet as well. She's a girl, he's a boy, so he has to step up to the to the plate.
I think that's a great place to sort of conclude this podcast. I think what we've come to is the fact that Tybalt is a very misunderstood character. Yes, at the start he's quite aggressive. He comes across as this sort of he loves violence, but as it goes, the play carries on. He sort of change, and
see more of his character, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Okay.
Maybe we'll do a podcast later on to talk about how he's developed.
Yes, we could. Right then, that's all for today. Then, thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you next